Yesterday we started ellipses, right? So everything we did yesterday was graphing the ellipse. You got the equation, you made sure it was in standard form by setting it equal to 1, and then you graph the ellipse. So this, I would say now I would just make sure I know these formulas instead of having to know both, because if you know that there's no h or k, you know your center's at 0, 0. But these are the standard form of our equations, right? A, we said yesterday, a squared is the larger denominator. The order does not matter, which means that if that larger denominator is under the x, it's horizontal, and if it's under the y, it's vertical. And then the a is the distance from the center to the vertex, the b is the distance from the center to the covertex, and the c is the distance from the center to the foci. And c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So again, we're going to learn a whole new set of stuff when we get into hyperbolas. So it's important to make sure you have like that running all the stuff in your head, or maybe compiled into one little review sheet with now parabolas and ellipses. So we're going to work out this example. It says to find the center of the vertices, foci, and graph. And when it says vertices, it means both vertices and co-vertices. A lot of the times the test will just say vertices, but it means both because you have to have both in order to make your oval. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to work on that one. We'll go over it. You can obviously feel free to ask questions while you're working, and then we'll keep going from there. All right, tell me what to know about this guy. What's one of the first things you want to look for? Center or like which, that it equals 1. I would start with there. First thing is the equals 1, right? And then after that, center. So the center of this one is what? -3, 2. Be careful because the order, you tend to automatically think x then y, and that's not always the case, right? X is second here. Then I look for the a squared, which is which one? The 49. And because it's underneath the x, what do I know about this? Horizontal. I would square root it to get a, which is 7, and then the b squared is 36, which makes b 6. Already I can graph it just with that stuff, but it's eventually going to ask me for the foci, so I might as well find it too. C squared would equal a squared minus b squared. C squared would equal 49 minus 36, which is 13. So C is the square root of 13. That root doesn't simplify it. If it did, I would. But in order to graph it, I'm going to approximate it to be that's in between root 9 and root 16, so like a 3.5-ish. Okay, again, it's an approximation, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I go to my graph, and I plot the center at -3, 2. We said it's horizontal, so we're going to go right and left the A. So I'm going to go right 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Left 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to go up and down 6 for my B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to draw my ellipse, which is almost circular because 6 and 7 are not that far off if that was a radius. And then the C, which goes on the same axis as my A, we said was 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5. Those would be your foci. I can use my graph to get all the coordinates of my vertices and stuff like that, or I could use that like adjusting the x by adding and subtracting 7, adjust the y by adding and subtracting 6. If I get it from the graph, this coordinate point is 4, 2, this coordinate point is -10, 2, and those would be my vertices. The coordinate point at the top and the bottom, this would be -3, 8, and this would be -3, -4. Those are my co-vertices. And then my foci, which is right and left, this is my root 13. So I'm going to take my center, which is -3, 2. And I'm going to add and subtract the root 13 from the x. That's what we're changing. So I can make it -3 plus and minus square root 13, comma 2. Or you could separate them out into 2 of them. It doesn't matter. Good? Questions? Come a long way in 24 hours, right? It was scary yesterday. Not so bad. Okay, so today we're going to focus on what happens when we flip it. The last thing we didn't talk about yesterday, which was on the web assign, like I told you to skip it last night, but it is on the web assign, it's called the eccentricity of an ellipse, and the eccentricity is found of C over A. So not C squared, not A squared, but C over A. All you have to do is put the C over the A. And it measures the ovalness of the ellipse. So like how round it is, or how flat it is, or how close it is to a circle. Honestly, you'll probably not be tested on eccentricity, but the web assign does ask for it in the individual questions. So that's all it is. C over A. And then, of course, it's a square root. If your A was a square root, you'd have to rationalize it. That's the only other catch. All right, so now we're going to do the equations. They're going to give you information. It could be like the center and your foci, or the center and a vertices, or the center and the co-vertices. It's going to give you enough information for you to figure out 2 of the 3 A, B's, and C's. And then you're going to have to use C squared equals A squared minus B squared to find the missing one. So if I look at 5, if my center's at 0, 0, and you can graph this on a coordinate plane, but you don't have to. If my center's at 0, 0, and my foci is at 0 plus and minus 3, that means I'm going up 3 and down 3. And that's the foci. So if I'm looking for A, B, C, what does the foci tell you? A is the distance from the center to the vertex, right? B is the distance from the center to the co-vertex. C is the distance of? Good. So from the center, which they give me, to the foci is C, which tells me already C is 3. Whether I go up or down, it doesn't matter, but C is 3. It also tells me that my center is 0, 0. So I'm going to get an x squared and a y squared. Nothing's going to be added or subtracted from either of those. And C is on the major axis, which in this case, God bless you, is vertical. If it's vertical, which of the variables gets the A? The y. So this is going to go over the A squared. This is going to go over the B squared. So all that information came from just that first piece. Yeah. No, it depends on where the foci and the vertices are. So the major is the longer one. Yep. Now it says the major axis is 8. On yesterday's notes, we didn't review it today yet, but on yesterday's notes, we said 2A is the major and 2B is the minor. So if 8 equals 2A, then A is 4. Yep.
How do you know it always equals 1?
Your standard equation will always equal 1. So when you give the answers for the equation, it has to equal 1. When you get the equation, it may not equal 1, but we then divide by whatever's there. But when you give it, like when the answer is the equation, it has to equal 1. All right, so now I have my A, I have my C. The only thing I don't have is B, but I do know that C squared equals A squared minus B squared. The C was 3. The A is 4. I'm missing the B, so 9 would equal 16 minus B squared. Subtract the 16. Negative 7 equals negative B squared. So B squared equals 7. Because the equation is B squared, I don't have to square root this. I can leave it as is. You just got to remember that that's already squared. Elizabeth. Sure. So I get x squared over the B squared, which is 7, plus y squared over the A squared. We said A was 4, so A squared would be 16, equals 1. So they will always give you enough information to get 2 of the 3 ABCs, and then you got to use the formula to find the third one. Daniela.
When you're solving for the 8, where'd you get the 8 from?
The 8 was, wait, where the, oh, it gave me the major axis length was 8. So 8 would equal 2A.
The foci and the vertices are always on the major axis?
Correct. Yep, B is by itself, but A and C are together. Rodrigo.
When it says the major axis length is 8, does that mean like the highest part of the like
The full axis from vertex to vertex would be 8.
Okay.
Yep. So halfway would be your center, which means that A is 4. All right, we're going to do it again. This time, center is at 0, 0 again. And the foci is plus and minus 2, 0, which means I'm going to the right 2. That's a foci. I'm going to the left 2. That's the other foci. So before we even get to the vertices, what do you already know? Center is at 0, 0, so it's an x squared, y squared. There's nothing with the x or the y. What else? C is 2, because the distance from the center to the foci is 2. What else?
If I'm not mistaken, it has to be horizontal.
Good. It's horizontal because the foci falls on the horizontal axis. So that means this time the x gets the a squared. Now I still need an a or b, which is where that second piece of information comes from. It says the vertices are positive and negative 3, 0. Vertices would go here and here, which is consistent with a horizontal one. And also tells you what? If the distance from the 0 to the V is 3, what is that? A. A is 3. So now c squared equals a squared minus b squared again. I have the c squared, which is 2. Well, the c is 2. The a is 3. 4 equals 9 minus b squared. Subtract the 9. Negative 5 equals negative b squared. So b squared equals 5. So the a was 3. I'm going to plug it in down here by squaring it. That's 9. The b squared is what I have. That's 5. All right, we're going to go to 7. Vertices at 0 plus and minus 5, and it passes through 4, 2. So let's start with that first piece of information, that the vertices are at 0 plus and minus 5. That means up 5 and down 5. So what does that tell you already? A is 5. What else? Center's at 0, 0 because it's halfway between them. What else? Good. It's vertical, which means what gets the a? The y. So it would be x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared. And that could be reversed. The order doesn't matter, as long as the a is under the y. So I have x squared over b squared plus y squared over 5 squared should be 25 equals 1. Then it says it passes through 4, 2. What's that going to tell you? Here, let's just get a visual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Is that a vertice? Or a covertice or a foci? It's not, because it's not on, it would have to be on the x-axis, right? It's not a covertice either. It's somewhere in between. So it's just a point. What's a point? What letters are points? X and y. So I can plug those in as x and y and solve for b squared. So I'm going to get 4 squared over b squared plus 2 squared over 25 equals 1. So I plug that in as x and y. I would get 16 over b squared plus 4 over 25 equals 1. I'm going to subtract the 4 over 25. That would would be 25 over 25 minus 4 over 25, which is 21 over 25. With me so far? Yeah. Now I can cross multiply. So 16 times 25 equals 21 times b squared. I can multiply that out, 25 times 16. God bless you. 400 equals 21 times b squared. Divide both sides by 21. And that cannot be reduced. 2 doesn't go into both of them. 3 doesn't go into both of them. So that b squared, and I wouldn't square root it because I want it as b squared in my equation. That ugly thing is going into my equation. So even though it looks horrible, it's fine. It's kind of how it's supposed to be. X squared would go over 400 over 21 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. Now, technically, you're not supposed to leave that fraction in the... Okay, so I'll allow you to leave it like this. I actually don't think Webasine has a fraction in the answers tonight, but I would allow you to leave it like that. But if it was, let's say it's multiple choice, you would also see it as though this would be keep changed flipped. So it'd be 21x squared over 400 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. So technically, this is the correct format, but I would take the top one as well at this point. Camilla. In Webasine, I actually don't think there's a fraction in your denominator. But I'm pretty sure Webasine will take both. Yeah.
Why do we cross multiply?
Why? Just because there was a fraction on either side. You could multiply by 25, or multiply by b squared, and then multiply by the reciprocal. That works too. It's just the same process.
Could you show that?
Yeah, so like from here, I could multiply both sides by b squared to get it out of the bottom. And I'd get 16 equals, because this would be gone, 21 over 25 times b squared. And then to get rid of the 21 over 25, I'd multiply by the reciprocal. And it's the same number, 400 over 21 equals b squared. So I think the numbers there are ugly, but the process is what you should know. Yeah.
When it says passes through 4-2, will you always have to do the same thing we did? Because like what happens, like, could it end up on like the vertical?
If it does end up on the horizontal, then that's one of your vertices.
Okay.
Yeah, but most likely if they're giving you a passes through, it's not. Yeah. And even if you didn't recognize it and you plugged it in, if they gave you a vertices and you plugged it in as XY, you'd still get the right answer. Yeah. All right. Oh, sorry. Good.
If we know that it passes through 4, 2, would we know it passes through 4, -2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Number 8. Now different kinds of information. The vertices are 3, 3, and 3, -3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's a vertex. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's a vertex. Now what do we know? Center is not at 0, 0. It is at 3, 0. Because it's halfway between those points. If you weren't able to count it, you would find the midpoint. What else do you know before we get to that second piece of information? A is 3, and I heard it's vertical. So the x gets the b, the y gets the a. It would be x squared, but it'd be x minus 3 squared because of the center, plus, and you could leave it as y minus 0 or just y squared, it doesn't matter. And the a goes under the y, so this would be 9. Already, I know all that stuff. I'm only missing one thing right now. Yeah. How do you know b is 1? Good. The second piece of information is the minor axis. The minor axis is 2b. So if 2 equals 2b, b equals 1. 1 squared is still 1. So you can leave it like this, or you can write it without the 1 in the bottom. It's still right. Either of those are right.
Ours says major axis.
Yours says major. Okay, that's wrong. That doesn't make sense. Sorry, it should be minor. Why wouldn't it make sense? Because if the major axis is 2, what's your A? 3. I mean, it's 1 and we already said it's 3. So yours is a typo. This should say minor. All right, last 2 examples. Number 9, God bless you.
Thank you.
Says foci 0, 0 and 0, 4. What does that tell you? Centers at 0, 2. Vertical and what letter does the foci tell you? C is 2, the distance from the center to the focus. So already x minus 0, which we don't need, that's gonna go away in a second, plus y minus 2 equals 1. That I already know as soon as I get the center. It's vertical, so the a squared is going under the y. Now I go to second piece of information. Major axis length is 8, which tells me? Good. Major is 2a, which means a is 4. So I have the a squared would be 16. And I can now find b, because c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So 2 squared equals 4 squared minus b squared. 4 equals 16 minus b squared. Negative b squared equals negative 12. So b squared equals 12. I don't need to square root it, okay? Because it's going in my equation as b squared.
How do you know it's vertical?
Because the foci went up and down. So foci and vertices are on the major.
And how do you know it doesn't tell you the foci?
You would have to have something. You have to have either the foci, the vertices, or the co-vertices, and that will tell you which direction it goes. Correct.
Do we have a question that asks us to graph instead of just find the equation?
Well, that was like all of yesterday's stuff. Yeah. All right, so then it would be x squared over 12, because you don't need the 0, plus y minus 2 squared over 16 equals 1. I actually don't know if WebAssign will mark the minus 0. I don't think it will. Wrong. You just don't need it. I wouldn't mark it wrong on your test, but you don't need it. And if it was multiple choice, you wouldn't see it. And again, order doesn't matter. So if you rewrote this as y minus 2 squared over 16 plus x squared over 12 equals 1, that's also correct. Order doesn't matter. What matters is which one gets the A. All right, last one. Foci is 0, 0 and 0, 8. So 0, 0 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What do I know? Center 0, 4. C equals 4. Good. And? Vertical. Good job. So x minus 0 again, squared, plus y minus 4 squared equals 1. That'll earn you some partial credit just there alone. And my a squared is going under the y because it's vertical. Major axis length is 16, so if 2A equals 16, then A is 8. Good. Now I know this one is 64. And C squared equals A squared minus B squared. 4 squared would equal 8 squared minus B squared. 16 would equal 64 minus B squared. Subtract the 64 and negative 48 equals negative B squared. So B squared equals 48. And I'd simplify it, x squared over 48 plus y minus 4 squared over 64 equals 1. Yep.
Doesn't matter if you put x or y first.
Nope, as long as the 64 goes under the y. And the 4 goes with it, obviously, but yeah. Order doesn't matter. Good? Yeah. All right, if you're good on like the parabola stuff, you can jump in to finish this assignment. If you have questions from 4A, 4-3A or B, now's a good time to ask. So if you want to look